Huh? You say, Jay?
They must be locked in. Can you open a small drink for me there?
I can't open.
No?
It's a new management.
So,
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ما بعد. So the last class we started the section, or did we? We finished the section of the things that increases or strengthens or builds a person's faith. That was the last section we did. And this is the section now, or the categories of things that makes a person weaker. Because we already discussed the fact that sometimes as Muslims, our faith is strong, and sometimes as Muslims, our faith can be a little weak, and everything in between. And then he went over the things that make us stronger or things that can help us be stronger. And then now, the next section are the things that can make us weaker. And the first thing he mentions is that if we're not doing the things that'll help us to be stronger, then automatically that's going to make us weaker as Muslims, our faith. So if we're not learning about Allah and His names and Allah's descriptions, if we're not learning our deen, if we're not doing all of the things that he previously mentioned, not doing those things will eventually make our faith weaker anyway, by itself, in general. Then he moves to specifics. He says, number one, the first thing that contributes to a person's faith weakening or being weak is al-jahlu, ignorance. Ignorance, which is, in this case, the opposite of knowledge. Either a person knows, they have knowledge of something, or they don't know, they don't have knowledge of it. If a person doesn't have knowledge of something, that's the ignorance we're talking about. A person's ignorant of something, some type of information. So, in this case, and he said this is from the most important things that a person has, their problem, our personal problems, meaning it can be fixed. This is something that can be fixed. How do you fix yourself, or how does a person fix the problem of being ignorant, of not knowing? It's only one way. Huh? Reading is included in that. That's included. Only way I'm going to do if either I know or I don't know. And if I don't know, that means I have to learn. Right? No doubt. And reading is from learning. Reading is a part of learning. So he says, number one, this is the reason that the prophets, alayhimus salam, that they used to clarify whenever they went to the people to call them and give them dawah, they would clarify to them the importance of, or why they fell into the different sins they were falling into. In the first surah, or the first verse he mentions in Surah Al-A'raf, verse number 138, Surah Al-A'raf, verse number 138. He says here, it says, where Allah says, قالوا يا موسى اجعل لنا إلها كما لهم إله قال إنكم قوم تجهلون. It says in the Quran, it clarifies that based on ignorance, meaning ignorance, meaning people not knowing. And it's the same thing now, y'all. And a lot of this shows up at the time of death. Based on the ignorance, we see that people doing the things they do at janazas, for example. People behave the way we behave at janazas, the behavior that we see at janazas at the graveyard, based on ignorance. Meaning based on people not knowing and understanding, not learning how to behave at a janazah. So the fact that I never learned how to behave at a janazah, I never learned a janazah prayer, I never learned what to say during a janazah prayer. When I show up to the janazah, right, I behave a certain way based on my ignorance, based on me not knowing what to do. So he said the same thing happened here where the prophets were clarifying to their people, you people are doing what you're doing as far as worshiping other than Allah and the different sins based on you being ignorant. And in this verse, they said to Musa alayhi salam, they said, Ij'al lana ilahan kama lahum ilaha. They said to the Prophet Musa alayhi salam, make a God for us like the other group of people, like they have a God. That's what they told Musa. They have a God. Why don't you show us a God? Make something for us to worship, meaning other than Allah, besides Allah, right? What are they doing, those people? No doubt committing shirk. They said, make for us a God like they have one. Imitating people who are worshiping other than Allah. Ignorant. So Musa alayhi salam, he responded to him, Qala innakum qawmun tajhalun. He said, without a doubt, you people are ignorant. Ignorant, you don't know. You don't have knowledge, the proper knowledge needed. And the only thing that protects us, y'all, the only thing that protects us from going against what Allah said or His Messenger said is learning what Allah said and what His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. Therefore, we know what not to say and what not to go against. If we don't know, then we constantly just going to be, as we say, we constantly, for real, we freestyling with our deen. You just freestyling. You just going about it, shooting the breeze with it. You just go about it. When something come up, you figure it out when we get there. And I'm only using this example because this example, when it hits the hardest. You go to a janazah, right? It's packed with Muslims. But if you look around at the behavior of the Muslims there, a lot of it doesn't match what we're supposed to be doing in Islam. It doesn't match. Yes, there's a bunch of Muslims there. Yes, everybody's sad. Yes, everybody wants good for the deceased. The problem is when it comes to the prayer, when it comes to even lining up for the prayer, we didn't get to the graveyard yet. If we move back, if we scale back, when it comes just to washing the body, right? Handling the body in the washroom when we're washing the bodies, the behavior there is not, a lot of times is not even in accordance with the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's not because, and this ignorance here, this ignorance doesn't mean a person is stupid, doesn't mean a person is a dummy, doesn't mean a person is not able, they got a mental problem. It doesn't mean that. It means that a person did not take the time to learn. And when we don't take the time to learn, it's a consequence that comes with that in all aspects of our deen. And I'm just using the janazah for example. But in all aspects, when we don't learn what we're supposed to be doing, it's a consequence for that. So for example, when we don't learn, brothers, I don't know about the sisters because I can't see the sisters. Brothers, when we don't learn how to join the prayer when you're late, you late. You got to the salat late. They're already praying. If you don't learn how to join the prayer when you're late, more than likely you're going to make a mistake when you come join the prayer. When you make that mistake, possibly your prayer is not valid because of the way you joined. You missed something. You left something out. That's not Islam's problem. That's not our deen's problem. That's your problem for not taking the time to learn the rules. How do I join the prayer when I'm late? I don't know. Nobody went to sleep or nobody wakes up knowing the detailed rules like that. Meaning it's everybody's responsibility to learn those details. I come to the masjid, they're already praying. I seen brothers walk up, they don't even do the takbir. They never even start the prayer. The prayer doesn't start until you say Allahu Akbar. Brothers walk up, they in sajda, they just walk up to the row and just get on the floor. That's not the imam's problem. It's not your wife's problem. That's your problem for not learning what am I supposed to do for the salat. It's your salat, nobody else's salat. Everybody responsible for their own salat. That means I'm supposed to learn how to pray for me. I have to learn how to perfect my salat, right? And there's a trickle down in every area, not just the salat. Every area is a trickle down. If we remain ignorant about things, meaning no knowledge, no matter if you got a Muslim name, you got Muslim parents, Muslim family, none of that matters when it comes to implementing the deen. If you did it wrong, it's wrong. Your last name is not going to carry over for the fact that you forgot something in the prayer and you didn't fix it. You skipped something in the salat and you didn't fix it. That's my responsibility to make sure I learn that so that I can fix it. And everything else falls under the same rule. So that ignorance that keeps us, we should understand, all of us, we should understand when we remain ignorant of something, meaning when we don't take the time to learn it, we should understand it's a consequence connected to that ignorance. And everybody may not have that consequence because everybody may not have that lack of knowledge. That might just be you. And it might not be you, it might be the person next to you, but everybody's responsible for themselves. Tayyib, in this case, they wanted another God to worship like the people who they saw worshiping another God. And Musa said, you are a people who are ignorant. You don't know. You haven't understood the correctness of worshiping Allah Jalla wa Ala. He says, فَالْجَهْلُ رَأْسُ الدَّاءِ the at the top of the, if we could say things that are poisonous or deadly or sicknesses, at the top is ignorance. Most of our problems, y'all, come from ignorance. Ignorance meaning we haven't learned what we're supposed to be doing as Muslims. So that means, and I'm only using the extreme cases, when death happens, we respond a certain way. Muslims are supposed, we have responses in the way we carry ourselves during the time of death. But if we don't learn that, that means when death comes, we're going to respond the way we've been taught to respond on the internet. We've spent more time following people on the internet. We've spent more time following certain channels and following certain pages. We've spent more time doing those things than we have learning actual deen. Tayyib, meaning we've spent more time following certain, whatever the page is. We've spent more time scrolling on certain pages that we follow than we've spent in masjids learning deen, which is a problem. Therefore, when something happens, I resort back to what I know, not for what I learned from deen, what I'm supposed to be doing. He says, whenever a person is ignorant about the deen, or if they're ignorant about the things, ma yuqarribu ilayhi, if he's ignorant about the things that will bring them closer to the deen, whenever they do this, the further we are away from knowledge about our religion, the closer we are to falling into a sin. The knowledge is supposed to protect us from falling into the wrong things. That's what it's supposed to do. Not just we know a bunch of stuff and we can tell everybody what to do. But if I learn something, as they say, when you learn better, you do better. So when I learn something, I'm supposed to practice it so that I don't fall into the same mistake again. Tayyib. He says, number 2, a person being ignorant of their deen, number 2, he says, this will lead them to inhiraf al-bayyin an dinillah. It's going to lead them to going away from the deen. A lot of times, when we are not on our best as Muslims, as individuals, a lot of times we don't want to point the finger at ourselves. I'm not right because I haven't been doing right. I haven't been doing it. We'll find a reason, many of us will find a reason to blame Islam. And in reality, I really haven't been doing what I'm supposed to be doing, what I'm supposed to do as a Muslim anyway. But I'll find a way, and this is from the shaitan, I'll find a way to push the blame off of myself and to push it on to either somebody, my wife, my husband, my kids, my job. I'll find something to push the blame onto instead of taking responsibility for what I'm not doing as a Muslim. And at the top, at the tip top, at the top is learning what I'm supposed to be doing as a Muslim. Learning, which means I have to dedicate some time. I have to dedicate some time to learning, which in our case, y'all, that means at some point I have to make a conscious decision to say I'm gonna go to the masjid to attend a class. And I'm gonna sit through the class. And I'm gonna try to sit to the class from the beginning to the end. Not one day, not a lecture, not a one-day lecture on the weekend. A class from the beginning of the book to the end of the book. Which usually, a class usually, whatever masjid you go to, a class is usually that class is once a week. 1 day a week. That 1 day a week, usually, that class is probably 1 hour. 1 hour. That means we talking about sacrificing 1 hour a week to learn my deen. That's what it boils down to. Do I love my deen enough? Do I love myself enough? Do I love Islam enough to sacrifice 1 hour a week to learn something from Allah's deen? That's in simple terms. We all know we spend hours on nothing. Everybody has a phone. We spend hours on different things we watching, whatever videos, whatever we reading, whatever page we spend hours doing that. But do we sacrifice 1 hour a week? It don't matter where you go. It might not even be an hour. It might be 45 minutes, or the class might be an hour and 10 minutes. Regardless, you're talking about an hour per week to learn deen. Or do we want to remain ignorant? Ignorant. And as we remain ignorant, meaning we don't know our basics of our deen, we should expect certain consequences for not knowing. Is it time? It's time? We'll stop there, inshallah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.